everyone, and welcome to the Waffle Flower channel. I'm Shannon and I'm here to share with you a faux watercolor stamping technique. I'm using two stamp sets today, the Feathermore and 100% Love. And I'm also using some distressed inks. I'm using scattered straw, fired brick, spiced marmalade, and seedless preserves. I have a 5.5 by 7.5 panel of watercolor paper, and I'm pulling out from the Feathermore set 4 of the smallest stamps. And you can see me here figuring out how I want them to be positioned on the panel. And first I'm going to take the largest stamp and I'm going to ink it up with the scattered straw, which is my lightest color of my distressed inks. You can see me inking it up here. I'm going to ink up most of the stamp. I'm going to leave about a quarter of it uninked, and I'm going to, on that upper quarter, I'm going to use seedless preserves and ink that final quarter up. And I do go over the scattered straw, but it's okay because seedless preserves is darker. Here I'm using the spice marmalade, and I'm using the corner of that ink pad to kind of create like a triangular pattern or designs on the feather. And then I am spraying it with my water. I'm using like a mister. It actually is like one that is a bottle that comes with a eyeglass solution to clean your glasses, but I took that solution out and filled it up with water. You saw me clean my stamp, and now I'm going to pick another stamp. And I did, on that last feather, I did go over with the spice marmalade on top of the scattered straw, and same thing, it is a darker color. It didn't mess up my ink pad. Here I started with scattered straw again, and then spice marmalade, and now I'm using the fired brick just to add some details. You can see I'm using the corner again, adding some details onto that feather, misting it. And when you mist, you want to make sure you kind of hold your spray bottle a bit away so you have a fine mist falling onto the stamp, and you want to be kind of conservative with your sprays. You don't want to spray a lot of water on top, because then the ink can slide off. That last feather, I did a little bit too much water, and so I stamped it twice just to get more of that ink onto the paper, more of that color onto the paper. I'm on to another feather now. I'm starting with the spice marmalade, moving on to the fired brick, and then I will put on some seedless preserves. This will create like a gradation. Missed it. Moved my watercolor panel away so I wouldn't get any water on the slightly damp feathers that I stamped earlier. Stamp it down. Now I'm going to move on to my final feather out of my 4. This is the small peacock feather. I'm using the corner again to get some spice marmalade, that orange, onto the top, and then you can see I'm pointing to the sides there. I'm going to put some my darker shade, which is seedless preserves, onto the sides. And I'm not afraid at all of putting my ink pad on top of another color, because I'm very careful to make sure I'm starting with my light inks and then moving on to my darker ink. So if I do happen to get 2 inks on top of each other or stamp an ink pad on top of another ink, it won't mess up my ink pad. Okay, I've sped it up here for you guys because I'm doing the same thing over and over again with all my feathers, the same combination of colors of inks in the same manner that I applied them before because I liked it, so I'm going to keep going with it. I think this is I really am liking how it turns out. I'm really excited about it. It's a really easy technique, so if you are at all intimidated by watercolors or watercoloring, this is a really good one to try. It's very easy, and I think it yields really beautiful results. And my panel is large, so this is actually a 5.5 by 7.5 panel. I take a big pad of watercolor papers, and when I pull a sheet out, I cut it down into 4, and that's what I'm left with a 4 panels that are 5.5 by 7.5. And I will eventually trim this when I'm all done stamping all the feathers and they're dry. I will trim it down to 5 by 6.5 inch. And that is a big panel because I make big cards. Alright. And I've seen other people do this technique with other inks besides distressed inks. Distressed inks work really well though because they work so well with water, and you get a nice play on the surface of your stamp pad. The color, I'm sorry, of your stamp. You get a nice play when you mist it with the colors. The colors kind of mix a little bit together, and it's the distressed inks work really well, but I have seen other people use other inks for this technique and have nice results too. So if you don't have distressed inks, give it a try with what you have and see what you come up with. I bet you'll have some nice results as well. Okay, I'm almost done here. I've got about 3 more feathers to go, just figuring out the positions of those last feathers. I will most likely end up trimming this off, but I like to stamp it to completion anyways. It's just so pretty, it's hard to stop. And my last feather. Okay, and that's the final result. I'm going to show you up here up close kind of what all my feathers look like. And I'm going to let this dry for a little bit. It doesn't take very long. And now I'm going to move on to the splatters. I'm using a black acrylic paint, and I'm thinned it down with some water, only about like a half a tablespoon of water, doesn't take too much, and I'm tapping my brush with my finger, and that's how I'm getting the splatters. I'm trying to keep the splatters in the center, mostly centered, because I want it to kind of be, that's where I'm going to have my sentiment, so I want that to draw you in a little bit more, establish, make the sentiment seem a little bit bigger and bolder. So I'm really getting a lot of splatters on here. You do not have to use this. It's kind of like, I wouldn't say it's a high quality acrylic paint, but you can use lower quality acrylic paints. You can use like the bottles that you find at Joann's or Michael Art craft stores. Okay, that's the 100% Love stamp set, and I'm going to use the Thank You, and I'm using VersaFine Black Onyx ink on a scrap of white cardstock. It's literally a scrap. At one point you might see the back side. We just have some stamped images on there. So I'm just inking up, making sure it's completely covered, got good coverage on that stamp, stamping it down. And after I clean my stamp off here, I will fussy cut the sentiment out. Now the only trick I found with fussy cutting is to, sorry I'm off screen here, is to turn your paper or turn your image while you're cutting it, and to actually cut into the black or the outer line a bit. Just if you can, cut into that a little bit. You'll just have a less of a white buffer around your image, and it will look a little cleaner that way. And to get us a more polished, even cleaner look, I'm using a marker with a brush tip on the end. I think brush tips work really well for this. And I'm just going around the outer edge and coloring it black so there's no white, and it looks very clean that way, very clean sentiment. Okay, my splattered panel is still wet at this point, so I can't stick it on, but I'm just kind of seeing if I like the way it looks. And I've decided that I need some dimension. So I'm getting my craft foam here, and I'm going to place my sentiment on there, use a pencil, trace around it, and that's going to leave some lead on the foam, and then I'll be able to see that and cut out my circle for the back of my sentiment. I'm going to use multimedia matte here to glue my sentiment onto my craft foam. I don't have the squeeze bottle, but I do have, I just use a brush. Brush it on, and then I'll clean my brush when I'm all done. Sticking it on here, and my splatters are still wet, so I have to let it dry. And now it's all dry. I glued my panel onto a 5 by 6.5 card, and my last thing here is to glue my sentiment on to the center, that kind of focal point of splatters, with the multimedia matte. And that is it. I hope I've inspired you to give this faux watercolor stamping technique a try. And if you want any more ideas, please join us. Please follow us on YouTube, Instagram, or Facebook for more creative ideas. And for more product info, please visit waffleflower.com. Have a wonderful day.